Make sure the window has focus.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Speedify Live Q&A. So I'm here. I'm Alex Gizes, your host. And with me, the mirror image always gets me. This way. Over here is Mike Kane, one of our lead developers. So what are you responsible for here, Mike? What exactly would you say your job is?
Day to day, just kind of fixing all the fires that we create. But, mostly UI side, a lot of the user interface came out from the code we wrote, and a lot of the mobile stuff. So especially Apple products. So the iOS app and the Mac App Store app, a lot of my responsibilities.
Nice. All right. So for everyone out there in the audience, this is your big chance to bother the people who make the Speedify. All right. And so as Namdari, I hope I'm saying that right. I'm sorry if I'm not. Says here, I gave fiber internet 100 megabits per second and a 4G TP link, MR600 router with 20 to 30 megabits. And I'm using both with Speedify and a Raspberry Pi 4. With speed mode, I am only getting 40 to 60 megabits. Any thoughts, Mike?
So, just, using a 100 megabit internet connection and bonding a 4G adapter, I would definitely just probably put the 4G adapter in a priority of backup and, just use my fiber and have that 4G kick in when needed.
So I guess the first question is for you trying to answer this is what priorities are on these connections? Are they both always? Is one secondary? So if you could answer that in the comments. So one thing to say, especially on the Raspberry Pi, on these weird scenarios, there's a setting which you can get to with the command line interface for an overflow threshold. Essentially, if it sees the main always internet getting faster than 30 megabits, by default, it usually does not try to bond other connections to it. It won't bother using cellular if it sees you're getting more than 30 megabits. And if that's not what you want, you can actually adjust that setting. Right. All right, it is. All right, it's past midnight in India. Cool. So both are primary, so it's not the overflow threshold. So if you disconnect the 4G, do you get better speeds or worse speeds? I guess that would be my one question to ask.
I'll also look into how far away are you connecting to a VPN server.
So is that, yeah. So as that, we are here live. I'm Alex. This is Mike. We're the people who make Speedify, and we are here to answer your questions. So if you have any questions for us, you just post them in the comments underneath wherever you're reading this, and we will show them. We will answer them. Bonnie Grover says, "Hello, Mike."
Hey, Bonnie.
So one thing that keeps burning people on the Mac is tethering the iPhone. Can you screen share this, or should I?
please go ahead. I could walk you through it as you're doing it.
All right.
If not,
yeah. So I have an iPhone tethered to my computer right now, and I'll share the screen. You guys not see it? Add to stream. There we go. All right. So I have tethered an iPhone. So when you tether an iPhone, kind of the first time, and if you haven't done it for a while, maybe occasionally after that, you have to go to network preferences, and it pulls up this list of all your network devices. And on the iPhone, and it shows up clearly labeled iPhone USB, there's this checkbox, disable unless needed. And you have to uncheck that. By default, iOS, and it's not a bad decision as a default, since you don't have Speedify. You can only use, if you don't have Speedify, you can only use one internet connection at a time. And so it tries to make sure that if you have working Ethernet or Wi-Fi, that it just stops using the tethered cellular phone. But if you have Speedify, we make the decisions for you on whether or not to use the tethered cell phone. And you don't want Mac OS making that for you. So this checkbox, when you first tether an iPhone, will show up checked. You need to uncheck it and apply. And then once you do, it'll be here as a working internet connection. Oh, well, probably because I just checked and unchecked it. Speedify will get around to it in a few minutes. So that was one important thing. And that has, messed up enough people. I feel like I should say it even if no one has asked. Speedify does run the Firestick. Make sure to check the Speedify support page for a guide.
Absolutely.
Oh, the Amazon Android. Yeah. Android TV and stuff, Speedify works on it. You can install it. Some of them, there are slightly tricky install instructions because if they don't have the Play Store, you have to get the APK from us. But if you go look at M support, mobile support, .speedify.com, we have articles. Search for it. Yeah, so you can get it running on a Fire Stick. You can get it running on Android TV boxes, and it really works. Right. So if you have questions, this is the place. You asked in the right spot. Just ask your questions. All right. Go Web Technology says we are testing Speedify for our live streaming services. Need some more tests before we implement it. All right. Tell us what we can do. So here's a question. Just signed up for the year and are planning on running a dedicated mini PC running Ubuntu in a 24-foot production trailer.
Nice.
Yep. That sounds legit. When it comes, Linux boxes, we support the Debians. So Ubuntu is right in there. That is, Ubuntu and Raspberry Pi OS are the two Linuxes we test on most. If you're planning to use Speedify and you have a choice of operating systems, pick one of those. You might be able to get us to work on others, but those are the ones we really test on. On support.speedify.com, no M. Sorry. There are a whole bunch of articles about how to set up sharing the Speedify connection on Linux over your Ethernet or over the Wi-Fi to act as a router. The instructions are there. I think they're pretty clear. And they work. Russian VPN, TikTok, thanks, bro. Okay. Not sure what that means. I originally purchased Speedify because the ability to keep my video calls connected when switching from Wi-Fi to 4G, 5G. Yeah, in retrospect, people around here talk about, did we name Speedify the right thing? Originally we thought it would be magical. You combine all these slow internet connections and get a fast internet connection, and while it works at that, the thing that's really magical is you can be in the middle of a call and you can literally, cut an Ethernet cable, or you can have Comcast fail while you have a tethered cell phone, and you just stay online. All right. Just found out about Speedify, and it's super exciting. I'm very new to this process, and I'm looking for a hardware recommendation to feed multiple network connections to my phone for on-the-go streaming. Do you have any recommended reading or suggestions? Thoughts on that, Mike?
I mean, it also depends what phone you're working with, iOS or Android devices, but they have some really nice, portable 5G, 4G hubs that you could connect your iPhone to. You can connect that with your cellular phone, and any open hotspot will connect with your cell connection as well.
Yeah. So we have been hearing from people we trust about how great those Nighthawk mobile routers are, like the M1. We should get one. They seem great. The other thing, if you're more meta, is something like a Raspberry Pi, which gives you an Ethernet port, a Wi-Fi, 4 USB, and so you could use that to make like a hotspot that your phone joins. Run Speedify just like the last person with Ubuntu, following those same instructions, and then every connection that you plug into the Raspberry Pi's USB or Ethernet get combined together to Speedify. So that works pretty well. All right. What other benefits could I use Speedify that are practical? Asked Jonathan. Benefits of Speedify. You want to answer this, Mike?
Sure. I mean, I use it every day for so many reasons. One of the pitfalls I used to have when I used to travel into the city for work was actually calling my little son. And so when we would go under the tunnels and go through in and out of hotspots where my phone would connect to basically a dead internet, I wouldn't be able to see him, walking or talking. And with Speedify, it's just a steady stream the whole way. So, once I turn Speedify on and connect to a server, the whole way I could talk to my son and communicate, and everything's great. Especially, I just moved out to a new area. Another use would be, Google Maps. So I would start the Google Maps in my house, and by the time you get to the edge of the driveway, it would try to reroute me and keep spinning. But using Speedify, it just keeps my route going and lets me keep driving.
Yeah,
you keep going.
So,
yeah.
Here. So I mean, the edge of Wi-Fi thing for Google Maps. I mean, I have the exact same thing. I get in my car in my driveway and Google Maps stops working because the Wi-Fi is at 1 bar. Speedify will just switch to cellular, and I keep using it. So here's a weird use for it. When I'm traveling internationally, I have AT&T, and the data plans in Europe are so expensive. So I'll pay for a few gigs of data, and then I'll use Speedify to slow down my internet. Which we don't normally talk about how that's a feature of Speedify, but it turns out it is. And I guess I could show this here. Why don't we? While we're share screen, window, Speedify, share. So, so here's my Speedify window right now. If you go into a connection, first there's the priority. And if you don't want to use connection much, like the cellular, when I'm in Europe, I set it to a priority of backup. And that means don't ever try to use it for a speed boost. Only use it if it's needed to keep you online. And then there's this stuff down here, the daily data cap. You can tell Speedify, right, to stop me if I hit 150 megabits. Just stop using the cellular. And actually, when it hits that limit, it does whatever's listed here. which could be stop using it, or it could rate limit it, right? 5 megabits, 1 megabit, half a megabit. So you say, if I use too much cellular, slow down the cellular. And there's also a rate limit if you just want to say never, so in Europe, I'll set my cellular backup. I'll set it to a 5 megabit rate limit, so it can't go really fast. And I'll put on a daily cap of, whatever, a few hundred megabits. I'll calculate how much I can use a day to make it through my trip without running out of what I've purchased. And there I am. If I'm on Wi-Fi, since these things are all just on the cellular, it'll still let me go full speed. But anytime I'm on the cellular, Speedify will detect it then and purposely slow me down. Funny that's a feature, but it is. All right. Sebastian, are you on StreamYard? Good eye. So we are technology agnostic here. We use different streaming technologies almost every episode, but today we are on StreamYard. So good eye, and I'm curious, what gave us away? we were on Restream yesterday. Last week we were on OBS with the Video Ninja, which is pretty neat. But yes, absolutely. Today this is StreamYard. So my tech stack, by the way, I'm using Camo. I'm on a Mac Mini, and I'm using Camo to turn my tethered iPhone into the webcam, which you're watching me with. And then it's streaming over Speedify to give me those multiple internet connections that you just saw up to StreamYard, who is then sending it off to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you got Twitch, wherever you guys are watching from. That's coming from StreamYard. Oh, yeah, no, all good. Yeah, Speedify on the Raspberry Pi works fine. Sure does. It even works on the 64-bit. Yeah, we kind of missed that at some point recently, the 64-bit version of Raspberry Pi OS came out. And we were embarrassed to have missed it, but it turned out Speedify just worked fine. We've done so many things to make it work on so many different computers and cover so many cases that turned out a whole new operating system could come out. We didn't need to change one line of code. So that was kind of nice. When will you give us the option to connect from the port we want? Not quite sure what you're asking. For people who have dedicated servers, we have port forwarding. So if you can pay $120 a month or $900 a year, and we'll have a server on the internet completely dedicated to you. And in that case, you can set up some of the ports on that server to forward all the way through to your computer. So people on the internet can connect to you and they come in through your bonded connection. I'm not sure if that's what you're asking for. Speedify, connecting from the port. Speedify, when you connect, it tries lots of different ports. We can't let you pick a port because so many different networks block different ports. So we'll try high numbered TCP ports, and then we'll try high numbered UDP ports. And if those don't work, we'll drop down. We'll actually disguise ourselves as a web browser and go out port 443 if we need to. There's so much going on with port picking. I wonder if you're asking about port forwarding, but specify. Oh, Jerry Cortez asked, what does Speedify do exactly? We're sorry, Jerry. Obviously, we jumped into the middle of this, and we probably should have started with some intro. Mike, you want to explain?
Sure.
What does Speedify do?
Yeah, at the core, Speedify is a channel bonding VPN. So basically, we will take all the available internet connections that you could feed us, and we'll put it into one connection to make it, more reliable and faster, but also with the privacy of a VPN. I think about covers it.
So here's the user interface of it running on my computer right now, and this is a Mac, but it's available on Mac, Windows, Linux, iOS, Android, you know, Android TV, iPad OS, lots and lots of OSs. And so here you can see I've got 3 internet connections, and for some reason the one tethered cellular is grayed out because it's not working. And I can't investigate why because we're in the middle of the stream, but doesn't matter. That's the beauty of Speedify. So I've got the Ethernet, which is plugged into a Comcast cable modem. And then the Wi-Fi is connected to this Android cell phone's hotspot. So if anything happens to that Comcast, it will instantly, without even breaking a socket, move everything over, to this hotspot. So yeah, so it makes things much, much more reliable. You can have things go pretty terribly wrong, and it will detect it. Another thing that Speedify does here, this isn't too exciting looking, but it detects when you're live streaming or doing video calls or voice over IP calls, and it marks them as streams here. And those streams it prioritizes. So if you're on a call or a live stream like this and something like Windows Update kicks in, Speedify knows the stream is more important than Windows Update, and it will purposely slow down the Windows Update to make sure that these streams, like Streamyard or Restream or Skype or Microsoft Teams, does Skype even exist? That they're prioritized and they get through too. It also, if it's a stream, goes ahead and lets it use more cellular than it normally would. Normally, it's sort of cautious about using the secondary cellular unless it really thinks it needs to. But if it sees it's an important stream like this, it'll just use more cellular to make sure that stream goes through. Boy, a lot of comments today. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Holy cow. We are not keeping up with all these questions, which is pretty exciting. Boy. All right. So in our first test, we connected an Ethernet connection and Wi-Fi and an iPhone on Lightning. When connected, we never get over 25 megabits. I guess there are a bunch of questions here, Sebastian. How fast were these different connections? There is that overflow threshold that by default Speedify, if you're, it's kind of trying to make sure you get above 30 megabits by default. And maybe 25 megabits is close to it. And so it'll start doing less bonding if it sees that, if the Ethernet's going, 30 megabits, it might not bother bonding. All right. Ken says, if there's no VPN in Russia, TikTok, Instagram does not work. Thanks to you, I am entering. Thank you. I'm Turkish, but I live in Russia. All right. Take care. Yeah. So, one of the things Speedify does, there are servers in different countries. Up here at the top, you can click. I don't like this trackpad. And it shows you, right? By default, it just connects you to the fastest server, which you see here at the top. But if you've purchased dedicated servers, they show up here. And then there's a list of all the countries we have servers in, and you can drill down on them. And you can see in Canada, we have them in Toronto and Montreal. And Toronto, you can see we have, a bunch of servers. So you can explore and see where we have servers. Your internet traffic will appear to come from one of these servers. So services that are looking at, what country you're in via your IP address, they'll see the IP address of the server. So that can be helpful with some services. We're not going way out of our way to try to trick companies like Netflix, though, who are kind of have whole teams of people trying to figure out if you're really coming from a VPN or not. So for some of those, we have another setting called the bypass. And where is that? And Mike Kane is going to explain what this is.
Sure. So we have a predefined set of apps that allow you to bypass traffic. Some are known to block us and some just prevent content from being shown, like Netflix. It will still let you watch Netflix if it detects a VPN, but will block, certain shows and movies. So we bypass that traffic for you. So, any new ones like Amazon Prime, you could just check that to on, and Amazon Prime will go around the VPN. So you go watch, the shows you want and things like that.
So what do you mean by bypass?
So bypass just means it's going to route around the VPN. So it's going to look like it's coming out of your normal adapters or your normal cell phone instead of a VPN server.
All right. I don't know. And it says, I'll look around the YouTube channel, see if you have a link on setting up the Raspberry Pi. I believe we do have videos on setting up the Raspberry Pi, but there are also articles at support.speedify.com. Yeah. So if you go look in the sports site, there's a whole Linux section, and it's got all sorts of articles on setting up the Raspberry Pi and whatnot. Sound Video says, hi, I've been happily using Speedify for 4+ years in many configurations and applications. A couple things I keep seeing, thinking would be logical progressions to the product. I assume there are more comments coming. I want to hear what they are. Here we go. They are coming. Here we go. 1, a few years ago, it seemed to have worked better combining a wide range of signal speeds, making the output cumulative to each channel added. Really? We feel like we've improved that. 2, why haven't there been any ASIC implementations of Speedify? Why can't Speedify be used to create an SD-WAN of all the systems using Speedify under the same account? 3, right, I got it. Okay, so why haven't there been ASIC? One, we don't do hardware and chips and things. Once upon I think someday there might be, but right now things are just changing too fast. Making a chip, each prototype costs $1 million, and then you say, oh, I have some ideas for improvements. That's another $1 million. And then when you're done, the chip is useless unless, Apple or Android or Lenovo starts building it into things, or unless you sell a USB dongle. I don't know. I think it's a natural progression. I think that 30 years from now, there will be an ASIC. But not this year, not next year. I think you're more likely to see it on some router running in software before you'll see it in a chip. And then why not have Speedify do, some kind of mesh thing where all of your internet connections get shared? We talked about that. We might do that someday. The biggest reason we haven't done it, I'll tell you because I've gotten excited about before, is that Android and Windows use a technology called Wi-Fi Direct to use Wi-Fi to talk to each other without a router. And Apple has AirDrop, which is essentially identical but completely incompatible. So, we could write code to make your iPhone and your Mac share their internet connections wirelessly. And we can write code to make your Android and Windows computers share, but they're two separate islands. And there are just too many people with Windows PCs and Android and Windows PCs and iPhones, or, a Mac and a Windows, and being able to say, well, this isn't compatible with that. It's very painful. All right, Jonathan is asking, what are the practical effects of the bonding settings? What does speed mode actually do? What does redundant mode do? And what does streaming mode actually do? I'm going to let you take this, Mike.
Sure. Yeah, it's a loaded question. So we would start with, excuse me, we'll start with speed mode. So speed mode will actually, like Alex said before, look at your threshold. And if you're using 2 connections that could complement each other. Basically, it would combine the two to make your internet faster. So if you had a Wi-Fi connection that was maybe 10 megabits a second, and you had a cellular connection that's maybe 5 megabits a second, and you're in speed mode, it would try to bond them together to give you a faster speed. Redundant mode would actually put your traffic on all your connections at the same time, and whichever one makes it to the destination first is going to win. So it makes sure that no matter what happens to one internet connection, the data is being sent reliably. Stream mode combines basically both of these modes in a different way. We actually monitor all the traffic going in and out to detect if there's audio or video, and if it is, we prioritize that traffic. So the traffic here that we're using Speedify for when we're broadcasting live would be prioritized over maybe a download I have in the background or a software system update, and that's streaming mode. But within streaming mode, it could actually use bonding or speed mode in that mode. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, so for most people, streaming mode is the smartest, best mode. And I would only change it if you had a specific problem. All right, Mike says, you guys helped me so much with League of Legends. The first time I saw a VPN to actually lower my ping and not the other way around. The trick I did is that I connected to a server that is based where League of Legends EU West servers are and work perfectly. I live in a remote, and my ping went from 100 plus to 45 milliseconds. Feels worlds apart. Nice. Yeah, pings are tricky. If you really, it used to be more of a problem than it is now. If you know what service you're connecting to, it probably makes more sense to pick a speed server of ours that's closer to that service than closer to you. And it used to be a big thing with Twitch. Twitch used to only have servers in Seattle. So if you're planning to stream to Twitch, you should connect to our Seattle servers. But now even they have servers in lots of locations. All right, speed is, I don't know, those look like happy emojis. Love from China, we use VPN. All right. All right, Ryan says that he also uses it with League of Legends and it helps keep his. Can Speedify work with security cameras? Sure, in general, I would say use a computer running Ubuntu or a Raspberry Pi to, actually run Speedify. Act as a router, either Ethernet or Wi-Fi, to get them online. I was dealing with somebody on support the other day whose security cameras, you needed to connect to them from the outside. They didn't connect in, which sort of seemed very old-fashioned to me. And so they needed a dedicated server with port forwarding, so they could assign ports on the server to go to each security camera. It was a little tricky setup, but I think most of the things like Nest and stuff these days, the security cameras are connecting to the internet and sending the video, so you don't need to do things like that. What is this? I think when we're getting lesser speed in Speedify, that could be one connection ping is faster and the second connection means other connection ping is slower. Yeah, it is hard for us to combine connections when the latencies are radically different. The closer, if the latencies are actually the same, we really can get often 99% of the speed of all of them added up. If they're just kind of close, we can get 95 or 90% of them added up. If they start getting crazy different, then Speedify will just, treat one as a backup because packets take so much longer to get there. Is there a way to run Speedify without installing like an exe file to run on a Windows machine? No, I don't think so. We need to create a ton of virtual Ethernet device, a virtual internet connection when we run to capture the traffic. And that at some level always requires some sort of very special permissions. So it ends out, different permissions on every operating system, but no operating system lets you just run that kind of thing without installing. All right. I think we're caught up on questions here. All right. I think people are saying we should call this an end. So let's talk about what we're doing tomorrow. Tomorrow, I and Barb and Ryan are going to a horse farm, Gateway Horseworks Farm. This will be an IRL, in real life stream. I will mount my iPhone on this gimbal, and we're gonna go see some horses. It'll be earlier than usual, so it's gonna be 3:30 p.m. instead of the usual.
That's 3:30 Eastern, Alex.
3:30 Eastern, right? So an hour and a half later than the time that this stream started today, whatever that is in your time zone. Call me V. Question for Mr. Kane, since he is the Apple dev. Will there be a native M1 version of Speedify? What difference would that make?
Yeah, actually, we're in the midst of working on it. It got postponed a little bit, but we will have a native version for all Apple Silicon. The difference would be, WebRTC released a bunch of updates to be compatible with the M1. So, all the lower level architecture and networking will, be used, and all the native Apple libraries that we use will also be used. So you will probably see a slight increase in, performance, especially on the UI side, but we have a lot of testing to do before we can make anything, positive to say, run this on M1. We're a lot better, but running Speedify on Rosetta with the new M1s still looks amazing. Still, performance is amazing too.
Yeah, I mostly think that the main difference is you won't need Rosetta, which seems to annoy some people having Rosetta at all, and we won't require that anymore. I mean, even running the Intel version on the new Macs, I mean, one core can, max out some Ethernet connections. So I don't know, the performance increase you're going to get, it's going to be hard to see because it's so fast already. The code's not so slow that you're noticing the slowness of the code. Even you can have hundreds of megabits of internet, and we're not using very much CPU. Those CPUs are so fast, the M1s. So I don't know. Mostly, I think the end result will be that you just won't need to see that it's running on Rosetta. So, all right. We will do this again next Wednesday. I encourage all of you to go look at our support docs. If you have more questions, there's support.speedify.com and msupport.speedify.com for the mobile versions. And we have lots of articles and interesting things there. If you liked this, underneath, follow, like, subscribe. It's all free. We're not selling any content here. We're just jumping on, trying to provide useful information to you guys. So, if you want to get notified or whatever, and next time we're streaming, do that. All right. You got anything to add, Mike, before we call this night?
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Alex.
All right. Thank you, guys. See you online.